This podcast is for informational purposes only. It is not intended to provide medical advice. It exists only to entertain. In the French countryside in the 1960s, a man knocks on a door looking for the parents of a special young man he's heard about.
Bonjour.
Hello?
Hey, how you guys doing? So, can I come in for a minute?
Who are you? I'm sorry.
What is your name?
My name is Vic. Definitely Vic. I have heard some incredible things about one of your family members. I just want to talk to you guys and see if we can work out a deal.
I'm sorry. I'm not sure what you're referring to.
Yeah, no,
Is it our cheese? We have a lot of fromage
not a cheese.
at the market.
No, not a cheese. Look, let me put it this way. I'm a promoter.
We are farmers, you see.
I promote things, and I think I have a family member that is really talented. I think they would be great for my show. That's what I'm getting
our
at.
Daughter, she's a ballet. She's a dancer.
No, damn it, Dad. They're talking about me.
It's not
Can't
who
you tell?
I was not who was here. So let me talk about what I'm promoting. You know, let's do that. Okay, you guys seemed a little confused.
I'm very confused.
So imagine your kid in the spotlight, right? Just crowds cheering and wanting the best, wanting him to be
Like an actor to do acting on the stage?
more or less. Yes, it's kind of a stage. It's more of a ring, but it's not. It's definitely stage-like.
Which stage? Which theater are you from? Which from the Paris, the grand one there?
Paris, yes, definitely from Paris. My folks not from Paris. They traveled over. We'll get into that later. But this is more of it's like a squared circle is what the ring looks like. Squared circle.
I do not understand geometry. A square and a circle?
It's a new thing. It's been around a while, but it's a new thing. And I'm just saying, I think
Sir, we are simple farmers. If you want the fromage, I will get you some fromage, but you don't take our children. I'm not sure.
Will
That's
allow
not a
your
good
child
thing.
to come with me. He will be rich. He will be set for life. I really think.
I like money.
Thank you,
Actually,
thank you.
Maybe there is a possibility.
So what do you say? Like a famous career, kind of an
Can I pick which one you
on
take? Maybe one of
stage?
them, the one I don't like.
No, take me. Dad, I know. We have had our issues before. I'm going to go with.
Yes, we have.
I grew up in Greece.
I'm not here for. I would actually the other one over there, to the right,
To be a celebrity?
the 7-foot one. I want
You
the
want-
7-foot kid.
Oh no.
Give me the 7-foot kid. He'll be a star. You won't regret it.
Okay, sure. Yeah, take our children. It's fine.
Okay,
it's
take
fine.
them on.
We have so many. We have.
Alba.
You gotta listen, you don't have to read. For historians.
Welcome, everyone. This is Poor Historians, a podcast misadventuring into the archives of medical history and beyond. Each show, we will dissect a case from the past to learn a little something about how medicine got to be the way that it is today. I'm Max, and I'm joined here by my good friends and colleagues, Dr. Aaron and Dr. Mike.
What's up? Did you want me to say? Is this the part where I talk on the podcast?
You see, when I say like Dr. Aaron and then Dr. Mike, basically you each say you say hello in a sequence so that the listener knows who's who.
Hello in a sequence. I have to stop.
It's not bad. You got to get a new joke.
I had a guy in college. We used to he would always say "sup" when we walk by each other, and then I would say "not much." And one time I was walking down the hall and I saw him and I was like, "Sup, not much." I just did the whole thing at once, and he laughed.
That joke was so lame it came around to good.
No, it came around good because, Aaron genuinely laughed at it, and that made it funny.
Well, on that note, we shall say that we are also joined by our medical history intern extraordinaire, Alba, who is here as well. Hello, Alba.
Hello.
See, that's normal.
That's how you do it, guys.
That was a normal response.
Yeah, she nailed it. This is
Well, usually I would say something like, how's everybody been, etc. But I think I'm just going to take this time to point out that Mike is recording from his Commodore 64 because he's having primary computer issues. So his audio is going to be a little different because he was like making a microphone out of a paper tube and a bunch of tin foil. It's working.
And I ended up just farting through it.
Yeah.
And cracking myself up.
Christened it very, very nicely. So we are professionals here. And now, before we get going, let's take a moment to say a few words about our sponsor, Artery Inc. We love having a sponsor, especially one that happens to be a good company with neat anatomy-inspired apparel items, and one that also happens to be doing a giveaway. So Artery Inc. has been kind enough to sponsor a contest for our fans. Through the end of November, if you send us a trivia question for Mike to try and answer in our next segment of the show, we'll enter you into a drawing to see if you're the lucky winner of a free t-shirt and a Show Me Your Guts coloring book from Artery Inc. To see how cool all that stuff is and what the choices of t-shirt are, etc., go on over to www.arteryinc.com, that's INK, to check out their collection of items as well as how not gross an anatomy-themed coloring book really can be. I mean, seriously, you can like color in the intestines and stuff and hang them on your wall. It's not that weird. If you can't wait to see if you do win, we would encourage you to load up your cart with $35 or more worth of items and use our code HISTORYPOD to save 10% on your order, as long as it does not include subscription boxes, because those are separate. So with that, let's get to Mike's trivia. This is where we ask Mike a listener-submitted question about medical history. It can be about anything. He doesn't know what the question is. He has no preparation, and they're about impossible level unless you know everything. And so if Mike fails to answer the question correctly, that listener gets an eponym, a medical term named after them. And so I usually am hoping that Mike loses this game. Are you ready, Mike?
This whole time I thought they were getting EpiPens.
It's
Wow, that's a deep cut there. That's a deep cut joke.
The wordplay. That's why
it wasn't wordplay. It was more.
That's why people follow us.
Is it onomatopoeia?
The puns.
No, that's not what that is.
Onomatopoeia
is a word that sounds like the thing it's describing.
What it is.
Yeah.
Like crash.
Homonymous hemianopsia.
Or moist. Anyway. Why do people hate that? Anyway, let's just... All right, this week we are taking the question from Anna, who asks Mike, what is the Lazarus phenomenon and who coined the term? And this is interesting. I've never heard of this, actually. I've heard of Lazarus, but not.
So it's, Lazarus phenomenon. Ooh, I don't have to guess the year.
No.
Because it was, so it's 1930s. There's a guy named Axel Lazarus. Yeah, Axel Lazarus. He was a guitarist. He actually started playing the fiddle and the banjo, and then ultimately was one, along with Les Paul, or it was a pioneer before Les Paul, inventing the electric guitar. Mm-hmm. So Axel Lazarus inadvertently electrocuted himself and got tetanic contractions of his forearm, and he ended up inventing death metal.
To be clear, you said Titanic. Contraction.
Titanic.
Oh, tetanic.
Like tetanic. Yeah, like
tetanic. Okay. I'm sorry. Go ahead. So he electrocutes himself.
Yeah, inadvertently, because he was working with Nikolai Tesla at the same time.
Right.
So Axel Warhammer.
You
What was his name?
define that, Mike.
Yeah, that's a tetanic contraction.
Oh yeah, so really like tense forearm contractions. He ended up shredding so hard that he ruptured all the tendons in his dorsal wrist.
Right.
But the tetanic contractions are just when the muscles are all like firing at once,
but they contracted so hard that he ended up playing this killer riff, and then the electricity went through the guitar as well, and he invented electrical guitars. But yeah, the Lazarus effect is the effect of electricity on muscles to promote tendon rupture in order to advance the arts and culture.
I want that to be true. I actually want that to be true.
That would be awesome.
So yeah, it's.
I got the year right again, though, didn't
I? No, not even. No, not even
same
a little
century.
Bit.
Same century.
I guess you could say same century. So that doesn't count for anything. All right. Well, this is actually interesting because you would think, Aaron, have you heard of this? Just curious. Nope. Okay, so 3 ER docs, and it's kind of should be in our wheelhouse somewhere, but it's so rare that maybe not. Anyway, Lazarus phenomenon. This is also known as auto-resuscitation of the heart after CPR fails. So,
because Lazarus was,
The
or,
guy who shredded the
yeah.
guitar.
resurrected.
Yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely.
Right.
And so this is a like extremely rare phenomenon with like tens of cases described in medical literature. It does derive from the biblical name of like Lazarus being resurrected kind of thing. It was described by Dr. Jack Bray Jr., who was an anesthesiologist in 1993. So you're only off by like 6 decades,
Whoa.
but you know, hey, close enough, I guess, in the geological scale. It
was the
it can
90s.
occur. It's true. It can occur like 15 to 20 minutes post cardiac death, basically. In the vast majority of patients, do not go on to survive much longer. But what happens is their heart stops. They're declared dead because there's no more electrical activity, and then 15 to 20 minutes later, it can kind of spontaneously restart. Doesn't necessarily mean it will restart in a way that like gives you blood flow, but it can be an organized and perfusing rhythm, and there is a percentage of people that have like walked out of the hospital after getting bagged up, and
This has happened to
so
me.
Well,
oh good
15 to 20 minutes later.
Not me
Yeah.
personally.
yeah
What
yeah.
what percentage, Max? What percentage?
You know, I thought I saw all right, so there's like what
We said tens of
How
cases.
much anxiety am I going to have from now on when I
Yeah.
pronounce patients?
Let's
well,
just give a little bit
how
of time,
much are you going
guys.
to give me?
Like, to wait 20
I told you,
Wait a minute.
tens of cases in all of recorded medical history.
tens. Okay.
So I don't know, divide all the cases that have ever happened by 30-ish.
Okay, so it's a low
So
So you're
percentage.
saying
Probably-
there's a chance.
Actually, of all the people on this podcast, it's probably Aaron who has seen this because he
Hey,
always
why-
sees the
why
weirdest
me?
stuff. You always see the weirdest stuff. We're going to talk about Anna winning this eponym, right? So, Anna, we have found a medical term that is totally real, that is derived from your name, and the term is anasystole. I don't know if you guys have ever heard this before.
Oh, the wordplay is so good.
So basically, doctors are definitely going to be familiar with the term asystole, and for folks who aren't, asystole is the term for like the heart has stopped. There's no more no more electrical rhythm. There's nothing. There's nothing happening. So it's a flat line. It's basically, watching ER the show, it's the flat line. And so systole is the word for squeezing of the heart, when the heart pumps and it squeezes the blood. So asystole is bad, but in contrast, anasystole is a good finding because it refers to when the heart is squeezing with like extra vigor and repetition. So the heart goes into systole and another systole, anasystole, 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 and so on, and it keeps going because the name is there. It's the Anna. And I'm honestly pretty proud of this wordplay. This is like the
Pretty
best.
good.
It's really
Best
good.
thing- thank you,
And
thank
I'm
you.
following. It's good.
Well, it's the opposite of asystole, so it's really just systole.
That's not the word.
No, but that's only one systole. You
But that's
need the
only one,
anasystole,
yeah. You need a
anasystole,
systole,
anasystole, anasystole,
anasystole,
anasystole, anasystole.
anasystole,
You're welcome, Anna.
anasystole.
That's I am
That's-
proud of it. It's the best thing.
That is awesome.
It's really good. It was a good.
Yeah, I don't have children, but I made that.
The farthest off I've been on
That's,
any answer.
that's true.
I honestly
true.
didn't even think. I just started talking. I should have thought.
No,
I would
actually,
bet
I
the
think it's
Lazarus
better
effect
when
has
it's
been
not.
on TV.
Yeah, well, of course it's been on TV. You kidding me? So while we're all
Actually, I
losing
think that's what
sleep-
happened to Meredith Grey.
Is this a Grey's Anatomy thing?
Well, she like survived some crazy like hypothermia scenario that she never should have survived. So
Well,
Fair.
that's the well. You're not
You did
dead
an
until you're
episode on
warm or
that,
dead.
didn't you?
yeah, but not on Meredith Grey.
Oh, is that a Grey's Anatomy thing? I honestly don't know.
I don't know.
I didn't know that was her
yes.
last name.
It's
We digress.
Grey's Anatomy Lazarus Syndrome.
It's just like 45 seconds.
Oh,
of
yeah?
stuff.
Episode 13, season 3.
Perfect.
Yes.
Sounds
Excellent.
like it would make for good
Well,
drama.
it so happens that I did write up an episode that I'm proud of, and it's almost as good as the wordplay at the beginning here. So I think, instead of lingering on all the Lazarus cases that we've all definitely had, let's move on. So for this part, when I start talking about the case, we're going to kind of focus on who we're talking about, less than the condition, because I think the condition's going to be fairly, I don't know, it's going to be kind of common to a lot of physicians. That part's not going to be really that's not going to be the fun part of the mystery. The mystery is going to be more who it is. And so let's kind of work with that. And if you figure out who it is, guys, don't jump in yet. Let's let me
You
get
just give
to
me
it.
a lot of anxiety that I'm not going to know what you're talking about, and then I'm going to feel like I'm not a real doctor.
All
You
but
gave
will.
me
And
a lot of excitement that I'm going to try to figure out what you're talking
That's
about.
right.
So
Do they-
we
See if
we can
Alva's going to
balance
figure it out before me.
Did they have one
I
name
don't
or
even
two
know.
names?
they have
I'm not even going to ask.
multiple
I'm going to
names.
go straight
Okay,
to the.
anyway, you guys actually don't even have to really ask questions. I may give you that, but we'll go. So, all right, today's case settles around a really remarkable person with a remarkable medical condition that's also, of course, interesting. We're going to talk about the person, and then we're going to pivot to the history behind the condition, like how they discovered it, what it is, all that sort of thing. So let's go to the idyllic French countryside in the 1940s, and our patient will be found there. The patient actually did go by the name Didi by his sister. And at least
Did he?
yes, that he was called that. That's
Did
proud
he?
of that one. So
That's good. That's
he
good.
was born into a family in the middle of 5 children to his father, Boris, who was a farmer, and his mother, Marianne. And basically, by all appearances, kind of a normal kid. Goes to French countryside school, is a good student, good at math. Is that important here? I don't know. It might be.
Is his
Probably
mom's
not.
name Natasha?
No, but I did. I was going to try to work in a Boris and Natasha joke, and I thought maybe I might be the only one who got it. So
There you go.
Rocky and Bullwinkle. Anyway, by age 10, something had definitely changed. So at that age, it just so happened that Didi was 6 foot and over 200 pounds. This
Oh,
made
I
him
know
a
who
really...
it is.
Hey.
I already know who it is. This is so annoying.
Stop, Mike. Stop. He told you not to ruin it. He said, don't ruin it.
Max.
This made him a
That is so-
phenomenal soccer player.
He said, don't ruin it.
This part's for Aaron. So he was like a goalie among the other 12-year-olds, and
Wait, I thought
basically,
you were dead.
quote, virtually impossible to score on because he was gigantic.
Oh,
And he had the little kids' goals, probably. They're
Yep.
like this big.
Yeah, I'm sure it wouldn't even matter. So he's helping his father on the farm. He could basically do the work of like 3 kids his age. And by age 14, he had completed the amount of requisite basic education in France at the time and went to work on his father's farm as kind of like an employee. By the age of 16, his height continued to skyrocket, and he was about 7 foot tall at that point, and his weight was well beyond 300. And though he wasn't a mechanic, he could lift a car while his brother changed the tire without needing a jack, which is pretty fun thing. He did try a few other things for work. In his mid-teen years, he started in woodworking, of all things. He actually completed a 2-year woodworking apprenticeship, but it didn't really satisfy him. He was like, it's not really what I'm going to go do. So he wanted something much more challenging, apparently, and he went to work at a factory making hay baling engines. So
Sure.
whole factory for that, I guess. But he returns eventually to his father's farm to work, and he sort of becomes like everybody in the village is like, hey, your kid is like giant, like, and it gets out, like the word kind of spreads, and so it spreads to Paris. By the time this guy is 18, they're hearing rumors of him in Paris. And in Paris, the exploits of this gigantic teenager with like the strength of multiple men catch the attention of a guy named Robert Leger. And he was like, I'm going out to the countryside to see this guy. And in 1964, travels to Moulins and meets this teenager and his parents. And this guy's like, so parents of like really modest income, if you don't mind, can I like take your son back to Paris and like teach him how to use his size to make a living? And they were like, yeah, that sounds cool. Why not? Go for it. And so Didi travels to Paris with this gentleman, and he's thrown into a ring. He's taught how to grapple, throw, avoid injury by falling, that sort of thing. And it's the beginning of a extremely legendary career, all made possible by this medical condition, mind you. And basically, once discovered, didn't get treated. We'll kind of talk about that as well. So I'll stop here and just see before Mike jumps all over this. Does anybody not know who this is? Let me put it this way.
I mean, are there rocks ahead in this story?
Rocks ahead. You're thinking Strongman?
Mm-hmm.
I mean, probably
oh my
were, but I
God,
won't say
Aaron.
it's.
Oh my God. I'm
Alba,
gonna
how about you?
publicly shame you.
Why are you going to publicly shame me?
Who's a?
I'm talking about a giant Frenchman.
Giant
Is
man.
it Andre the Giant? Is it Andre the Giant? Sorry, no. Was I not supposed to say?
No, I'm
Or did
asking
I
you.
say it
Is that where you're
wrong?
putting your nickel? You think that's who it is?
I don't know, Alba. I don't know.
That's the only giant I know of, but I think the timing is off. I think Andre the Giant was too late.
Mike, what do you
for
think?
the 1940s birth?
Mike, what
It's
do you
Andre
think?
the Giant.
It's definitely Andre the Giant. You kidding
Yeah.
me? I get to
That's
do a
why-
wrestling episode. It
Yeah,
has
so
medical
that's-
history.
That's why I grumbled. If you didn't hear me say,
I know.
Wait, I thought- wait, no.
It was like, Mike's
Wait, I
going to
thought he was
love this
dead.
one. Yes, we are definitely talking about Andre the Giant, one of the most impressive wrestlers in history, such that Alba knew who he was and doesn't watch wrestling at all.
Yeah, and I don't know
Yeah.
not about wrestling.
And Aaron probably just overthought it, honestly.
I
Yeah.
didn't. Nobody got the reference, which is kind of distressing.
Oh, wait, was the Rocks thing, was that? What-
Yeah.
fill
Are
it
there
in,
rocks
fill it in.
ahead?
"Oh,
If there are, we'll all be dead. It's a Princess Bride
Right.
reference.
Yeah.
That was a
Oh.
Because
deep cut, Aaron.
yes,
I-
well, which is appropriate because
Yeah,
No,
if you
Aaron,
would've said,
that
his
like,
friend
Jack
was
Pirate
Aaron
was
with the
in
clutch
swordplay.
return, right they're about to dog him. He's just like, no.
Yeah.
I was there all the time.
Aaron's so stupid. He doesn't know Andre the Giant. And he turned around and made us look stupid.
Well played, sir. Well played.
We're not knowing Princess Bride. Yeah.
Yeah,
That's
the
good.
best movie of all
Well played.
time. It took me a while though, because I was like French. I was like, I was like 40s France. Was he a Nazi? And what happened with that? And all this
Answer
stuff.
that is
And then-
no.
no, definitely not. Right?
All right. So this episode isn't just an excuse for me to talk about wrestling history,
It
but it's
absolutely is.
definitely
It totally is.
partly
It totally
that. Yes,
is.
it absolutely is part
Oh.
that.
What was his finishing move, Max? You're going to tell us that, aren't you? Did he have a?
do you-
was he a face
I mean,
or
there was-
a? or a
well,
heel?
he would flip later in his. You don't get me sidetracked because I won't come back. Like his finishing move was like throwing people for fun.
You guys, I'm having connection issues. I don't think I can continue. I'm gonna have to leave.
But we're also going to talk about a unique medical condition and how it affected this very special person. And we'll start though by talking about Andre the Giant as the wrestler that again non-fans have heard of, and then we'll get to the condition. So I do promise, Mike, I'm not going to go too far into the wrestling side of the story because I don't want you to leave, but we got to talk about some because it just really sets a
Oh my
backdrop.
God, no! I think you said
He's
enough.
so great.
he
I love
wrestled.
him. No, I love him.
Andre
That's-
Rene Rusimov, his little sister used to call him Didi. That's where I actually got that. So, because she mispronounced his name. Adorable Andre Rene Rusimov. He did grow to be every bit of
How
that
do you
giant.
get
of his
Didi out of
namesake.
Andre?
I'm guessing. I don't know.
I want to know what the
Rene,
condition of
maybe
this-
Andre
Yeah.
Didi.
I don't know.
Anyway.
In there.
So basically, he was a true giant, like both in terms of his stature and like his history in the wrestling world, right? And you could definitely make the argument that wrestling is the pinnacle of performance art and human achievement, and I would make that argument, but I'm not going to do that right now, Mike. I'm going to move on to the next
Wow.
subject.
Oh, interesting.
Pinnacle.
After his
Performance
initial
art.
training as a wrestler in France,
Okay,
where
okay.
he did begin at age 18, he was already over 7 foot tall as a teenager at that age, and he could just like lift cars, mind you. He made his way over to the U.S. eventually.
Yeah, but
And-
French cars. It's not-
Yeah.
Yeah, I know, like a Peugeot.
Yeah.
I'm still impressed. I have a
Ooh.
picture of it. It's actually kind of
Ooh.
impressive. Well, anyway, you lift a
Yeah.
car. You lift a French car.
I lifted a French car once. It wasn't that hard.
No, you didn't. Anyway, so he came to the U.S. and he would come to a town, especially like the mid to later 60s and through the 70s. And the way wrestling worked back then was like you had territories, different promotions were like the South part, and like this one was in Oklahoma, blah blah blah. So he would come to a town and he would just be this giant spectacle, and he would crush whoever was there. And you would sell a ton of tickets because everybody wanted to see this, and then you move to the next territory where he
It's
was
like
a
a
new
sideshow.
kind of thing. Yeah, I mean that's more or less. Wrestling has a lot of roots in it's a carnival thing. It came from anyway. I won't go there, but the so he goes to every town, and this is actually also why he never really won championships. He did win a few, but you can't put the championship on the guy that nobody would believe would lose, right? Because then it just stays there. So it's important that wrestling is very believable at all levels.
Yeah,
Anyway.
I could see that. Mhm. The fact that they
1973.
were choosing who was going to win. Oh, we can't pick the guy that would win because that
No.
doesn't make any sense.
In 1973, he did capture the attention of Vince McMahon Sr., who brought him into what was then the WWF. And I note that's the father of the Vince McMahon who like presently oversees the WWE, and he's known to
He's
not
a
only be
junior.
a ruthless businessman, but also to be like a person who definitely should not have a mustache. Like you gotta like kind of appreciate recent wrestling for that one, but like it looks every bit as unsettling as like his personal history behind the scenes of the business is. It's just, I think he recently shaved it.
Oh, did he have one for like Movember?
Kind of, yeah. It's like almost like a Roger Waters style stash, and it just, it's the thing of nightmares. Anyway, during his career,
oh my God,
yeah, it's bad,
I just Googled it. Oh, it's so bad.
Yeah.
Oh,
you get those spine tingles when you see it. During
that's
his
horrible.
career, Andre was billed as being
Ew,
7 foot
oh my
4.
God. I just got it too. No, he looks
so
like
bad. Vince McMahon's.
he looks like
looks
Herman
so
Munster.
bad.
It ain't good.
Oh
Yeah.
man,
No,
that is
no.
rough.
No.
With all the plastic surgery too.
I mean, did he do it on purpose just to get? He must have shaved down to just have that line of hair on the lip.
Yeah, no, it's
That
a choice.
can't be how it actually grew.
That's
No,
a
it's a
very
choice.
like a Spanish mustache.
Oh man, that's mean to Spaniards. I mean that thing is. Oh,
Now who's
It's like
digressing
he-
into wrestling?
How do you just shave the top part? I don't understand how you could possibly get the razor between the nose and where the mustache starts.
instead of a milk
I think
mustache,
that
you
our
just
entire
like drank
outtake
some
session is going to
hair.
be dogging on this mustache. I'm okay with that.
Oh, so he doesn't even look like a villain. Like that wouldn't be believable if he were a villain. You'd be
He
like,
does,
that's
but he
not.
looks like a villain that they tried to de-age and it unfortunately aged him. He just
the
got puffy.
technology went backwards.
Look on Elba's face right now.
Oh
Yeah.
no.
Now, during his career, Andre was billed as being 7 foot 4 and up to 555 pounds at one time, but it may shock you to know that there is some exaggeration typically in wrestling when it comes to those sort of
No.
things.
No
I
way.
know, I'm afraid
Say.
so. So it's not really sure what his true size was, but it probably wasn't far off that, to be honest. And he was called the eighth wonder of the world, and he did wrestle all over the world. His biggest match probably was at WrestleMania 3 in 1987 when I was all of 5 years old. Walk Like an Egyptian was, by the Bangles, was number 1 on the Billboard charts, and Aaron and Mike were celebrating their graduation from medical school, just to give everybody the historical context of the time.
You're so funny.
Help is laughing. Anyway, Andre.
Yeah, I'm laughing. I'm trying to figure out where I was.
And you
Wait,
should
what
not
was the year
tell us.
again? I was Googling
1987.
mustaches.
1987. I was born.
Huh?
I was
Nice.
9.
Nailed
What? Oh my God.
it.
I was born in February.
So
2
Andre
years before
allowed-
Milli Vanilli.
Okay.
Devastating story, by the way. Isn't there a new documentary? Oh.
Yes, there is.
Let's talk about that. Andre did he at that event, WrestleMania 3, he allowed Hulk Hogan to body slam him, and he was pinned in front of 78,000 fans. That's basically like arguably the pinnacle of 1980s wrestling. That's like one of these big moments. And I did say he allowed Hulk Hogan to do so because given his size, it was well known that if Andre didn't like you, he wouldn't lose to you. And there's a lot of really fun. I actually would encourage people. His backstory is pretty incredible. The HBO has a really good documentary about it, and there's some really fun anecdotes there where like wrestlers he didn't like working with Macho Man Randy Savage. He would make their life a living hell in the ring. It's pretty funny because there's nothing you can do
Wow.
because he's gigantic. And last part of the wrestling bit, if you didn't know him for wrestling, yes, you probably saw him in several movies. And as Aaron alluded to earlier, he is the star of the 1987 hit The Princess Bride, where he played Fezzik, who is a giant. I don't know who else was in that movie because it had Andre the Giant in it. That's all I needed to know. So it's the coolest thing about the movie. We're going to move on. At this point,
Carrie Ellsworth. or
Carrie
Ellsworth,
Elwes
whatever.
and
What else was he
Robin
in?
Wright.
Anyway. Andre
Mandy
the Giant.
Patinkin. Billy Crystal.
Mandy Patinkin did a good job in that
Billy,
movie.
I forgot Billy Crystal was in
Oh,
that.
and then
Yeah.
the girl from Kimmy Schmidt. I can't remember her name.
Really?
The old lady.
Oh,
She
yeah.
was
Oh,
Billy
you're
Crystal's,
right.
yeah,
She was-
Billy Crystal's
yeah.
wife.
Yeah.
I just remember
Liar!
Fezzik parts, so.
You've watched all of the Unbreakable Kimmy Schmidt, haven't you?
Oh,
Mike?
it's really good, yeah. She actually pulls out some of those
Same.
lines, like something happened. She's like, liar!
At this point, I hate to turn away from talking about wrestling, but there is a medical history part of this. So now that we know about his career, let's talk about the underlying condition that made him like over 7 feet tall. And in his case, it's aptly named gigantism. and we're going to talk about how it was discovered, but I'm going to also note here that the condition can be referred to as acromegaly as well. And there's a difference between the two, but the underlying process is the same for both of them. I will talk about what the difference is, but so I may use gigantism or acromegaly interchangeably here. They are kind of two different things, but a similar cause. So that's just, I'll get that out of the way. The first time a physician ever described gigantism was in the 16th century. And it wasn't the first case ever, of course. It was just the first time a physician took the time to write a scientific, if not truly rude and unkind account of a patient having it. There is little to no tact in historic medical writing, I'll have you know.
No, do you have an example of it? Because I'm sure it's just absolutely brutal.
I do, actually. Thank you for prompting that. I will. So this was Johannes Veer. He's Dutch. I don't know if that was correct pronunciation. I did try to look it up or hear it, and I got 3 different things. I was like, all right, we're going with that.
Did you Google it?
I did. It was like, tell me how to say this in Dutch. And then I got, I don't know, one site was really unhelpful. It respelled it and then told me how to pronounce a different word in Dutch. I was like, that's not what I asked you. Help me. So he's a Dutch physician in 1567 who wrote about what he dubbed as a female giant. She was 25 years old. She'd been making her living basically as a traveling sideshow to support her parents. And, her stature was the show. She had apparently been normal in appearance as a maybe early teens, and then her height, her facial size, and her extremities, and I'll say that word a lot here, and we're talking arms and legs, but her extremities grew in size and all very noticeably over a period of years. And I mentioned that unkind description Mike wanted to hear, so he wrote in his journal observations here, quote, "Her form was not attractive, her temperament was simple and stupid, and her whole body was sluggish." Medically speaking,
just gotta
medically
do it
speaking
that.
is me.
That's so rude.
It's so
I can rip her apart, man.
I just some of these things they're just so brutal, and you're like, come on, man,
even her
human being,
yeah.
pretty much. So look, if I could say anything redeeming about Dr. Veer's writing, it's that actually he would go on to write a bunch of treatises on why burning women for witchcraft was dumb and cruel, and he apparently have been among the first to use the word mentally ill to describe women who were accused of witchcraft.
I thought you should saying. I thought you were just going to leave it as a period to describe women. Silence.
He described people who were being accused of witchcraft, perhaps for underlying mental illness or who knows what. That didn't take much back then. He was saying they might just be mentally ill and they're not really witches. So I'm going to say 16th century is kind of progressive.
Did he? But just say we shouldn't burn them, but we should drown them. Did he?
No, he was like, "This is madness. Why are we burning all these?" He wrote a bunch of things about it, and I was just like, "Okay, could have been nicer when writing about your patients, but fine."
Well, he never saw them. Yeah, once he saw them, whoa, you can burn that one.
I mean, some of the descriptions I read, honestly, weren't far off that. To be fair. So there's many cases of patients with this condition kind of appearing in medical literature from that time, and there were people before he wrote that down that certainly had this, and they all had the similar features, and that being large extremities, especially the hands and feet, also having enlargement of the face and change to the facial structure, and tall stature. But that one can be it's sometimes there, it's sometimes not. So, but the first time the term acromegaly was used to describe this was in 1886 by a French neurologist named Pierre Marie. Pierre was covering for his buddy, a physician named Jean-Martin Charcot, who was Charcot. He was a big fan of things that come in threes.
Yes,
he was a thing.
That's
a Keeler joke.
He had a pen tab too.
Yeah, yeah,
he did.
Right. Yeah, so that's he's got a thing. They the Charcot's triad. It's 3 different. It's not important.
Oh, there we go. Okay,
we
I'm I am lost.
Yeah, no, it's
Charcot. Oh, I love that joke. That is hilarious.
There's an internist out there.
Could you pass me another sniff of brandy?
So Pierre Marie was seeing a few of Charcot's patients. I don't know if he was covering for him in the clinic. I don't know what it was, or maybe he referred patients to him. That wasn't really clear. But one of them was this 24-year-old woman who was brought in after her relatives were like, she is completely different. So apparently she went away, and I'm not really sure why, like what she was doing, but she like left the house for a couple of years, comes back like, hey, hi parents. And they're like, that, who are you? Because she had changed her
Those are the
appearance
good old
so
days.
significantly. Yeah, I mean, it's not like you're tweeting every day or not tweeting.
Yeah, like helicopter parents. That's the
Yeah, you're
opposite.
not sending pictures back and forth. And so it was so like striking to the family. Her like this, you know, they brought her in. And so he describes, you know, that there were, you know, the enlargement of the hands, all the things I had said before. And he even asked them to bring in pictures, like prove it. And, you know, they did. And that's kind of how he said, okay, something is happening here. And he called it acromegaly because the word, if you break it down, acron means like tip or extremity, and large or megas means large. So large extremities is kind of that. So, and he should also note that she was having some trouble with her vision, which is definitely a little bit of foreshadowing for what's really going on behind the scenes here. So,
Ooh.
I'm
I'm
excited.
going to try to think about that really hard.
Okay. Well,
Gland disorders, right? Like I remember when you learned about thyroid troubles or
you're trying to give away
other
the
ones, it'd be
trying to
like-
give away the goat here. I'm weaving a story here.
You didn't
Oh,
let
okay.
us ask
All
any
right, sorry.
questions, Max.
Okay. Alba, you can ask questions.
Yeah, I can ask questions, folks. I'm not a doctor. I don't know these things yet.
Okay.
I honestly, okay, so you said that her vision was blurry. So far her extremities are gigantic. Her hands, her feet,
And her face is
her
kind of
face
changed and
is
large
big.
and that sort of thing. Yeah.
And she is taller, so like does that mean her like leg bones and stuff grew bigger too?
Mhm.
So it definitely can. It definitely can. And that will be the difference between like when you call it gigantism and acromegaly. And we'll definitely get there. But for right now, she just has those features. She reported some vision difficulties, and that's like kind of a part of a few of the clues that led physicians subsequently to figure out what's kind of going on here. Many physicians were like aware of these folks. Like I said, these cases were all kind of around there, but it was interesting because they could have possibly figured out what was going on a little bit earlier, but there's a few near misses in that. Like here's the big one. So we'll start with the near miss to like make your own eponym here. And that was, this is in regard to a historically famous Scottish surgeon of the 18th century, John Hunter, who we've talked about, not in detail, but he's come up in many episodes. And he almost was the first one to kind of find this big clue. And like, just so you know, Mike, he's like the Drew McIntyre of the world of surgical history. Just
yeah,
for
I
reference,
don't get that reference.
Like
did he come up
WWE
with
Scottish
Hunter's
champion, like
Rington's disease?
what's that? There you go. He's that. Anyway, he had procured the body of a man named Charles Byrne, who was apparently also known as Patrick O'Brien. I'm not really sure why.
I
he had,
love
like,
the good old days.
yeah, just like totally two different names.
You just say like two Irish, like a give a name and a surname, and then like that's your name on that day.
Yeah, and I could have looked. I just did enough research already, and I was like, I don't know why this is there, but this guy was 7'7", and therefore known as the Irish Giant. And the thing about John Hunter is that he loved collecting, and he loved collecting specimens. And like other people get, baseball cards or Pokemon, he loved specimens, and so he was able to keep Byrne's enormous skeleton for his collection. And
Can I keep him?
Yeah, he took his, like, after he died, he got his skeleton, and I vaguely remember there's a story there, like how he got it too, and whatever. But that's for another
what
time.
Year was this?
Did he at least give the family the
He
skin?
robbed it out the ground by paying medical.
This is like
students in
17th
bourbon
century, so
and whiskey.
maybe
I'm
I'm
sure
sure
he got it.
I think that may not be far off. But like, so he was able to keep the skeleton, but he never opened it. He never did any real study on it. And so my wife would not have had that problem, since whenever she gets a new wrestling action figure, which she does get from time to time, she like immediately opens them to play with them. And I'm like, you can't do that. You're
Can't
ruining
do that. You got to keep it in the.
And so every time I buy a
package.
wrestling action figure, she's
Yeah,
like, I
look
want to
at
open
it.
it. I'm like, you can't. That's mine. That's
Mine.
absolutely happens in this house.
I love this little insight into your.
Well, then you don't get to use it. You don't
Alba,
get to use
it doesn't.
it.
No, it's not why
You
we buy
just
them.
look
We don't
at
buy the
it.
action figures to play with them. That could be my retirement. that
No one
action figure
can.
could be
It'll
worth
never
$2
be a
million
retirement.
in a couple of years.
Do you have some for playing though?
Yeah, the one she
Some
opened.
you get to play with?
Just get two of each. Just get
Max,
two
I've
of
got a
each.
couple of wrestling NFTs I want to sell you.
We'll talk later.
Deal.
Oh,
Yeah.
NFTs. Those are so great.
$100,000
Fast
bucks.
forward to an Italian neuropsychologist named Andrea Verga, who did open his patient up during his career in the 19th century. He was working at an Italian hospital in the 1860s when he
Let me
noted...
guess. They called him the Italian giant. Because everybody's got like their nation of birth.
Patty
and
the
giant.
Irish giant.
Honestly, they may have. I do feel like I read those
Sven
words
the
somewhere, but I
Swedish
didn't
giant.
note it here. Probably it's like that.
Dee Dee the
Giant-
French giant.
Giant
Claim-
gabagool.
You can't claim the. You can't claim it's my nation's giant. I guess I don't know.
Helga the German giant. Who
So
else?
I think she was, anyway. He's talking about this woman at the hospital, and it's not really clear if she was a patient or she worked there. I wasn't really sure, but he said she's got a condition that I think he made up called prosopoctasia, or like big face. So I mean, it's okay, whatever. But he was also not kind in describing her features, as you might imagine. I did not pull the quote because I thought one really mean quote was enough, but it was pretty much.
How about
par
this
with
one?
that.
He was probably like, hey, she made a better door than a window.
You're offending Alba. Or was that pretty good, Alba? Was it on par?
That's it. No, that's how my family is. We go, hey, you make a things.
Can you wait? You know what? You could just cuss out Mike in Italian at any point, and that would be excellent. You have my free reign to do it, and you just have to tell me what to beep.
All right.
So,
Okay.
Bici.
Dad, where did you learn Italian, Mike?
That's just
It's really good.
Online, yeah. Duolingo.
Bita Bita Beachy. That's really good. I'm going to call my mom later and be like, Bita Bita Beachy? She'll know.
Can you record that? Can we use that if you do?
Yeah.
It's gonna sound like the kid's mom from A Christmas Story. It's gonna be bad. It's gonna be really mad at you.
Yeah.
We'll see.
Anyway, so that patient had actually ended up dying about 2 or 3 years later in 1862 of like an unrelated infectious illness. And Dr. Verga was like, all right, I'm going to do an autopsy. And I don't get, like, was he still seeing this person as a patient, or he's like, I dibs you when you are dead, so I can, like, I feel like something sketchy transpired, but couldn't find any info.
They
It's
bought
like,
the action figure and they didn't want to open it up until it
he
was
did,
time.
I guess so. But he did. He opened up her skull as part of the autopsy, and he found a walnut-sized tumor right in the region of the pituitary gland. Notably, he couldn't even find like what he would think is a normal pituitary gland. It was like just a mass in there. And I think this is probably a reasonable time to sort of describe where this is. And I'm going to pawn that off on somebody. So go ahead, Mike.
It's in the brain. It sits below
Nailed
the
it.
brain. It's responsible for things.
It's in
It
the
does
Turkish
things.
part of the brain, isn't it?
Oh
Got
yeah.
an anterior and a posterior. And,
Look
you
at
know, remember
that.
all this
Throwing
stuff.
stones
And
in the cella turcica.
yeah, absolutely. So like it's basically this.
You know what's great is that when you say like Turkish and Selexursixa, I'm like, maybe they're medical terms.
No, yeah,
I
it
don't
is.
know.
It's
Cella
Maybe they're
turcica
making
is.
stuff
Cella
up.
turcica
Turkish
really is.
saddle, right?
Yeah.
That's cell.
Yeah,
Yeah, I
cella
think so.
turcica.
Turkish?
Because
Okay.
it's
Because I was
shaped
like,
like a-
maybe he just wants to talk about Turkey, a country now.
If you say
I don't
like
know.
circular kind of sway looking cavern, nobody's going to know. But if you say like Turkish saddle in a different language, it's like, oh yeah, we all know what that looks like. So that's why we
Sounds cool,
name
too.
stuff so many weird
like
things.
a-
It does.
wow.
Thing. But this,
I would
so,
have called it the pituitary nut cup.
I might have also, that would have been reasonable. But to get to it,
That's
if
a
you
good
want to,
description,
want to
too.
get to your own pituitary, you basically more or less you've got to go way back, as far back as your nose goes, and then sort of go north or up and backwards through whatever skull you find there, and it's kind of sitting there like behind your eyes in your skull, but like right at the back of the nose ish. I think if my anatomy professors from medical school are still listening to this, I'm sorry. It's the best I can do off the top of my
No,
head.
that was perfect.
Excellent.
I think
All right.
It's right there.
Yeah, it's a little depression there at the
Yeah,
base of the brain.
And it looks like a little. I'm not gonna let Mike describe what it looks like.
Uvula.
Okay,
They
perfect. That's way
totally-
better. It looks like a
yeah,
little
the-
brain uvula. It's usually
It
pretty
does
small.
look like the scrotum of the brain. If the brain had a
Yeah,
scrotum, it
it's
would
true,
be the
actually.
pituitary.
Oh my God, it looks like a scrotum.
Alba.
I'm sorry. It's
I
like
mean,
the first picture that came up. It's like, you know.
Yes, right.
Just for the audio listener, Alba was just gesturing with her hands, and just imagine the very.
I'm Italian.
I was
I
going to
talk
say
with my
very.
hands.
You took away my Italian
That's a
joke.
big meatball. Just like,
It's actually not
It
though.
looks
It's
like
small.
two
It's like
big
pea sized.
meatballs.
Like
It's
very
tiny
small.
though. It's
It's very tiny. So that patient too was describing vision difficulties, and I don't know if it's in front of you there, Elbow, but like this happens to sit, like you mentioned, it's like way behind the eyes, and it's like way in the back of your nose and in the skull. But you have these giant nerves that cross from your brain and to your eyes, and they actually take all the signals back from your retina. It's called the optic chiasm. It's just this big crossover of those nerves, and it happens to sit right near the pituitary gland. So if something is enlarging, like a tumor on it, it will actually start pressing on the optic chiasm, and you start losing vision in various ways that you can quiz a medical student about and make them sweat. But don't quiz us, because I don't remember all of
wait
it.
a second. In the beginning of this episode, now this doesn't give you a homonymous hemianopsia, but I said that term.
Yeah. It did. Now you got to explain it.
You get a
Yeah, homonymopsia.
bitemporal.
What?
I mean, yeah.
No, yeah, because you'd get a quadrantanopia with a pituitary tumor, right?
Those are
Are you
those are
making
real.
words
No, those
up?
are actually real. Those are words.
Yeah.
I
We're
can't
not- we're
wait
not.
the look on his face.
No, so homonymous hemianopsia or hemianopia is you lose vision and half the vision in each eye.
Okay.
So let's say like there's something in one of the optic nerves, then you're going to have, or the brain, you're going to have like loss of vision on the left of your left eye and the left of your right eye.
Oh, because the
'Cause-
same nerve does the same
And it kind of
half
like
of
goes,
each eye,
yeah,
right?
and it spins and twists like that.
It is actually kind of a cool
Okay.
phenomenon, and it's definitely beyond the scope of this show to really go into that. Pituitary tumors can grow enough to push on the optic chiasm, and there you go. That's part of it. So many autopsies on patients with acromegaly or gigantism were performed, and all of them really seem to have this. In fact, one Lithuanian endocrinologist diabetologist, which is kind of a redundant specialty name in the modern day, this guy named Oskar Minkowski noted in 1887, that being like the year right after they named acromegaly, that all the patients with that condition had these tumors. And so they start putting these things together. And finally, an Italian physician named Vincenzo Brigidi, Brigidi, Brigidi.
No, he's the guy that coined Peyronie's disease.
Perfect.
Let's have Mike say.
There we go.
Rigidity.
Peyronie's disease.
Well, he did an autopsy on a at the time famous Italian actor named Gerlanzoni. Single name, it's like Cher or something. But he had acromegaly.
No, I'm pretty sure that's
so
a
famous.
dish. That's a dish. That's not a person.
Gerlanzoni.
You can order Gerlanzoni in a restaurant. I've done it before.
I think the game should be this. I think Alba gets to use Italian terms, and Mike has to guess if they're real or not.
Oh,
Is gabagool
that's
real?
a good idea.
I don't even know what that is. I
Uh,
might be saying something horrific. I just saw it online.
It's taken a journey as
Yeah.
it once the word got to America. It's had a journey. So if you went there and said gabagool, I don't know that they would know what you were saying. If you said to my mom, "Hey, gabagool," she'd be like, "Excuse me." Probably because she's heard it
That's probably
here.
true.
Yeah. Because
Yeah.
to me, there's,
God, I'm
There
googling
was a
so
post.
much this.
yeah, there was a post where this
When
guy
I've s-
was leaving gabagool for Halloween trick or treaters. It was just a thing of sliced meat. It looked like
Salami.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's capicollo. It's
Mm.
like the meat on the top of the neck of the pig is capicollo. And
Oh.
so, but in Neapolitan, it's gabicola. So it sounds like gabagool.
Oh,
really? That's
excellent.
Gabicola. Yeah. Or testa di culo, butthead,
Mm.
would be cabicula.
My wife has
And
used
so
that term.
if you're cabicula, yeah.
She knows that
So
term.
cabicula and capicola, it's really
Gabagool.
That's
Yeah,
awfully close.
testicle head.
gabagool. Yeah. Put them together.
I like it.
There you go.
I'm going to use that. I'm going to use that for something.
I like to order capicola and have them pull out all the spicy stuff because I don't like
No, you don't.
that. No,
She was offended. Did you see that? She's like,
I
"Oh my
want to
god,
exchange
you
the
don't."
capicola for bologna.
dare you?
How could
Bologna's
you
a better
do
meat.
that? Oh,
Alba, I didn't know that you were Italian.
What
The
I
y'all
do.
didn't give it away?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, y'all. I know.
Yeah, it's
My
from
dad
Sicily,
is
y'all.
Southern.
From the South.
Yeah. I'm Southern Italian on my mom's side and Southern American on my dad's side from Virginia, North Carolina.
Here's what's happening in this condition.
That was a tangent.
It is a
I
tangent.
said
That's
I
a good
wanted a
tangent, though.
sweet tea.
Yeah, that's me. That's a really good impression of me, Mike. I want that sweet tea.
What is this? There's no sweet in here. I want to feel it sticking to my teeth.
So here's what's happening in this condition. In 95% of cases, a non-cancerous tumor is growing in a part of the pituitary gland that makes something called growth hormone. And it's nice when medicine actually names things for what they do. So it's like one of those things. It's like, oh, that's what that does. And what it basically causes many tissues of the body, especially muscles and bones, to grow. And it does a lot of other things, but that's what we need to know for this. And when you hear about athletes taking HGH, especially if they're going up hat sizes, it will increase their skull thickness and that sort of thing. And they're just taking a synthetic form of growth hormone to make
They're
bigger
going
muscles.
up hat sizes, but down jock sizes. Wait, no,
Not
that's
technically
anabolic
HGH.
steroids. That's anabolic steroids.
Yeah, we can explain that too. That's anyway. There are many other effects, like I said, but we'll just keep it simple here. So this is where the difference between gigantism and acromegaly comes into play, because they're both due to this tumor, which is non-cancerous, like I said, but it's active. It's making growth hormone. It happens to. It depends on when it starts happening. So if that tumor starts forming in childhood before puberty, your bones stop growing in length overall. So if you have this tumor making this growth hormone before your bones are done getting basically longer, then that's when they shoot up and make somebody very, very, very tall. And so that's why Andre the Giant was so tall, is because his tumor had probably started in his, by the time he was 10, he was over 6 foot. So it probably had been going for a couple of years, and his bones just kept growing longer and also thicker and also bigger. If it happens after puberty, after the bones cannot really grow much longer at all, then they basically just get thicker and more distorted. And in both of these can kind of change the facial shape, just depending on whether the face is like fused or those bones are still able to grow, etc. And so yeah, gigantism, it's a much younger age, happens before puberty. You're going to have all the height. Acromegaly, it mostly will have more kind of just thicker and more unusual looking limbs kind of thing. So that's really the difference, but they're both too much growth hormone problems. Acromegaly and gigantism are also treatable, and to a degree. If they're recognized early, the first line treatment is surgical removal, going in and taking out the tumor. And actually, historically, this was recognized pretty quickly after they figured out what was going on. So in 1908, an Austrian surgeon named Julius von Hockenegg, I'm sure I got that right, performed...
That's what happens when you don't like your breakfast. You hock an egg.
Albert,
Julius.
did I pronounce that correctly?
Mhm.
Oh, no, he's Austrian. He
Hockenegg?
wasn't Italian. Anyway.
I speak all the languages.
Wait, did you say Austrian? Because that's
I just know them
northern
all.
Italy, isn't it?
Oh, yeah.
Essentially.
It's the hat of Italy.
Pretty much. I don't know.
It's the hat of
Right over
Italy. Oh my god.
It's next door.
I can't even do it.
Anyway,
Oh.
von Hockenegg performed the first transsphenoidal approach for the treatment of acromegaly, which basically is a surgical procedure where they go in through the
There we
nose cavity or around it, basically, and take out the pituitary or the tumor from inside, which in
They just stuck a nice pick in
1906
there and went,
or 1908, yeah, I can only imagine how delicate this
what the
was.
hell?
But actually it worked.
What'd they do?
They did, well, I mean...
No, it's probably.
Well, they
actually
stopped
much
growing
better
because
than
they
that.
stopped living.
Could they see
Is that-
what they were doing?
Well,
up there?
the problem is if you take too much out, a couple of things can happen. If you take, you don't, it is kind of encased within this cavity, but if it grows high enough to like push on the optic chiasm above it, yeah, you can accidentally damage sight. And if it's been there long enough, I believe I don't quote me on this, but I think your sight can be permanently affected. if the nerve has been pressed on long enough, whatnot. But this is like 1908, and they're like, yeah, let's just go in the brain, like around the nose, and let's do this. And so this was actually a
It's
big deal.
1908. They didn't need consent. They didn't need. They're like,
Right.
stop moving.
In the New York Times that same year, there was a headline: "Acromegaly cured." I mean, it was kind of a like, wow. I can see why, because this patient, his first patient, they did well. They actually did well, so he was able to get the tumor
But they
out.
don't know. I guess it's one of those things. I mean, they were right, but you do the surgery and they stop growing. Maybe they were to stop growing anyway, because it's ultra rare.
Well, it's definitely not common, but the surgery, especially getting all that stuff out of there, as long as you get the part of the tumor that's making the hormone with it, it depends. And I said, like, and this will come back up here in a second, but it really depends when you have the surgery, because if you are, if you're a young kid and you have it, it is likely that you will go on to develop more normally. If you wait until you're like in your 30s and have it, all the changes to your skeletal structure are pretty much permanent. Your soft tissues might shrink a little bit after the surgery. And there's actually some medications they can use, but it's not really a first line. The first line still today is surgery. And that really became the thing in the 1950s or so, when they like developed surgical microscopes. They're like, oh, we can do this like delicately. Let's do that.
Nice.
Well, what would happen if because some people don't necessarily have gigantism or pituitary tumors, but they're big.
Yeah, I mean, it
operate
depends
on big people then, just like.
Well, this particular thing, since most cases of gigantism or acromegaly are because of a pituitary tumor, this is the approach for that. There are some really esoteric things that can cause growth hormone to come from other places, and you'd probably have to treat them individually, I would guess. But this is like the mainstay treatment, because this is normally what the cause is. And so, and with that, let's finish out with just kind of the rest of Andre's life. This last part here. Andre probably knew his diagnosis by about the 1970s. He started his wrestling career when he was really taking off. He actually ended up going to Japan to wrestle a lot. And he was a huge star. They really, really loved having Andre over there. And he apparently went to a doctor in Japan in the 70s. This is according to a close friend of his. And the doctor said, you probably have a pituitary tumor. You should probably get surgery, but he didn't at the time. And some of the accounts I read were like, maybe, he did not have a French interpreter with him. And so there might've been a language barrier, and he's like, what, you want to do what? And, in not knowing all the ins and outs of the procedure, which by that time was pretty well established and, reasonably safe for neurosurgery as you were. He just,
like, he should have known that, right? He's in Japan. He doesn't speak Japanese. He goes into the doctor and he's like, I don't understand anything
you're telling me. The wrestling business in the 70s, there's not a lot of hand holding. He was
probably
go over there and make money.
Intoxicated.
So it's definitely another side. But his friend had said that, Andre actually mentioned, he said, I was told I could have surgery while I was in Japan. But Andre's words, quote, God made me this way, and he wasn't going to change that, was what he told his friend. And so it came up again in his career. And by 1981, he had broken his ankle, and he goes to see an orthopedist, Dr. Harris Yet. And, so he diagnosed, you got a broken ankle and you're you're a giant human being. And this is a recognizable condition we all learn about in medical school. Like it's not a hard diagnosis to suspect when you see this. But he said, we're going to have to do anesthesia on you. We need to do some workup to see if this is what's going on, etc. And so I'm not clear that he had imaging. I don't think I could not find anything that said he had an imaging of his brain, like a CAT scan. 1980, so he probably would have had CAT scan or whatnot. But, he definitely tested for like the growth hormone excess, etc. And it was like, yeah, this is what you've got. It's not really a hard diagnosis.
The orthopedist did that?
Yeah, before preoperatively. And so
whatever, that's fake. That's a fairy tale. They didn't do that.
This was orthopedics.
Where'd you hear that,
80s.
Max? TMZ.
But so he actually told Andre, he's like, you can still have the surgery. And Andre said he was worried it would affect his wrestling career. He said, "This is my life. I'm going to." The pituitary surgery. Oh. And so he opted not to have it done. And it seemed like a lot of his compatriots, he told them, I know I'm going to die young. This is my life. And I want to do this. And then when I'm gone, I'm gone. And so, that the trade-off seems kind of difficult to accept, but you got to think about something else. Like Andre the Giant did not. He had amazing fame. He was financially very well off, but his life was really tough. I mean, he's over 7 foot tall. He's enormous. When flying across the Atlantic or the Pacific on a plane, he can't use the bathroom. They have to do things so that he can use the bathroom.
God.
You can't really sit in a seat normally. All of his clothing had to be custom made. All of his furniture had to be custom made.
Just pee from the hallway.
Doorways.
There's in that documentary, they actually talk about it, and it's like, I mean, they did the best, and he had to kind of live through that, right? So on top of all that, he goes out
Poor
in public,
guy.
and like you can't miss,
my
you
gosh.
can't miss him, right? He's enormous, and so
But
here's
if he had the surgery, then he could just be Andre, the regular sized guy.
well, not quite. So he would have been
Because he would still be the
he
giant,
would still
right?
be, but he
Even
probably
with
would have
the
shrunk like
surgery?
his hands and his feet a bit, and so he would have like helped with some of those things that would have taken weight off of him. He probably, so his big concern was like, I can't wrestle anymore, and this is how I make my living. So, but he probably would have done fine. In fact, continuing the condition, you continue to get bigger, your muscles actually get weaker, and and it shortens your life. So, but he kind of made that trade-off, and one of the things that's actually, if you come back to The Princess Bride, it's one of the he did several movies, but he really said he loved that movie, and the reason was like he's on set and he was not treated differently. And when he was in the wrestling ring, he wasn't treated differently. He was like, he got to be among people who kind of appreciated him for those talents. And so like, that's like one of the favorite things he did. That's kind of what, but at this point, his career is in decline. Like his health is already failing by The Princess Bride. When he catches her and she's falling, they had to use cables. He couldn't actually hold her weight at that point because his back was so bad. And so he goes downhill. And like by the time that is wrapping up, his wrestling career was practically more or less over. I mean, he did a few matches here and there, but it brings us basically to the end. And, he continued growing because he never had the treatment. And so he could barely walk, and he goes to Paris to unfortunately attend his father's funeral, and he goes to bed. He doesn't wake up. He was in the hotel. He had a heart attack, most likely in the middle of the night, and he had congestive heart failure because his heart kept growing too. And it's a feature of this if it's untreated as well. And so, age 46, Andre the Giant died.
Wow.
And congestive heart failure, and let's see, it was
Wow.
January 28th, 1993. And that was the end of his life, and so sad ending there. I don't want to end on the sad note, but I will say there is actually a few other wrestlers, certainly this might not surprise you, that have had gigantism or acromegaly, and I'll just note one of them. And he's still wrestling today in a very limited fashion, but he's Paul White. He's known as the Big Show in WWE. Before that, he was the Giant in WCW. And he remained 7 foot tall, 383 to 500 pounds in his career. And what happened was he was diagnosed in college. He was playing basketball, and they're like, hey, dude, we need to check this out. And he had the surgery done. And so he is big in actually overall, I mean, normally proportion compared to what you see with Andre's changes. But so yeah, he was on TV the other day. He's going back into the ring. I hope he's a fan of the show, and I wish you well, Mr. White. If you are, please reach out and say hi, because I hope things go well. But I'm going to consider that an up note given everything else. And finally, I was able to bring the worlds of wrestling and medical history together. That's about does it. So, Alba, as the medical history intern, what was the most interesting thing you learned today?
The most interesting thing, I remember when I was a kid, and I remember when Andre the Giant died, and I was really sad about it because I love that movie, The Princess Bride. And my mom told me he died because his heart was too big. And I just thought, like, that's really sweet. But as I grew up, I was like, I don't really think that's right, Mom. Like, that's not that's really sweet that you wanted to make me happy about it. So today I learned it's true.
Yeah,
now you have to call and apologize to your mom,
true.
and then tell her that Mike knows how to speak fake Italian.
You're right.
Yeah.
His heart was 2 sizes too big.
Unfortunately, it's not a good thing. So, well, that about does it. We appreciate everyone listening, and we'd love to hear from all of you out there. If you'd like to check out our merchandise or provide feedback, we can be reached through our website, www.horrorhistorianspod.com. There you can send us messages and find links to our social media sites. They will definitely be inundated with Andre the Giant pictures in the following weeks. We do work to respond to all posts on our various social media accounts. If you want to participate in the show, please use our site to send us a medical history trivia question that tests Mike's innate knowledge. And at this point, too, we're still running the contest through the end of the month. So through the end of November, send us that question. We'll get you entered for the contest we mentioned in the beginning. If you have time, please go and leave us a nice 5-star review on iTunes or whichever platform you choose. And we really, really do actually appreciate it. And so with that, Poor Historians are signing out. AMA. Mike's sideways.
Am I?
Yeah, you're sideways. It's
You
cool
put
though. I think you should
It's
leave
one of my favorite movies.
It is a good movie.
Sideways.
You drinking some
I
Merlot?
haven't seen it. I need to watch
You
it.
would like
I don't know that I've ever seen it. I just remember seeing it in the movie store, the Blockbusters.
Wow. I didn't put in any of my usual spiel about the trivia, so I'm just
Oh
going to wing it.
no. It's a fun game. It's a fun game where you get to ask Mike questions and Mike tries to answer the questions, and it's a fun game and he never gets them right.
And that'll work. Okay, that's the segment we're doing.
Alba, did you know that there's a recurring guest spot from this guy that we work with? His name's Dr. Provolone. He's from Italy.
Oh, have you
no.
heard? Have you run into Dr. Provolone yet?
Dr. Provolone.
Yeah, so Dr. Provolone came out. I was like a little punchy on a shift one day, and somebody was like,
Wait, really? There's somebody named Dr.
He'll-
Provolone?
No,
"Yeah, it's
no.
my alter ego."
Oh, okay.
So Dr. Provolone was invented before the podcast, but he usually comes out if people put in stitches because he complains that the stitches are too tight. Why'd you put so many stitches in? The stitches are too tight.
So Dr.
Is
Dr.
that when
Provolone
you have
comes
to
out for...
remove stitches? Dr.
He's
Provolone
just
is
like-
bad.
He just likes to complain.
Yeah,
Mike Punchy on a shift. I've never seen it.
yeah, right.